restless dreams. I see that town. Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday. But you never did. Well, I'm alone there now. In our special place. Waiting for you.
Silent Hill 2 is a survival horror classic beloved by many fans. Originally released 2 decades ago, the PC version of the game now has an enhanced edition that is compatible with the Steam Deck, and there are 2 ways that we can set this up, so I'll cover both of those methods today here in this video. The fan-enhanced edition of Silent Hill 2 offers many improvements over the original version of the director's cut for Silent Hill 2 on the PC. If you want to check out what the specific improvements are, I'll leave a link in the description below to a video that lists all the improvements from the team that created the mod itself. The first method I'm covering today assumes that you have a fully extracted version of the game for the PC. I won't be talking about where you can get these files, but if you search around a bit, I'm sure you can find something. The first method here assumes that we have a fully extracted version of Silent Hill 2 Director's Cut for the PC. Now we navigate to Silent Hill 2 Enhanced Edition's website and go to the download section. Here we just want to download the setup.exe, which will be something like Silent Hill 2 EE setup.exe, and we want to download that to our Steam Deck and then add it to Steam and add a compatibility layer so it can run. So now that we have the setup downloaded, we go to our library on Steam, add a game, make sure to set it to any type of file, not just .desktop files, and then navigate to the folder where you have the executable located. For me, I have this on my desktop, so I just navigate there and add it from there to here. Now with the setup in our Steam library, go to the settings and change the compatibility settings here. Now originally I tried out Proton Experimental, but on my end that didn't work. It would just crash when trying to run the executable. So for me, I use the latest version of Proton 7, and that seemed to work for running the executable fine. Now, if your extracted version of your game is located on your microSD card, like it is here for me, there's another step you're going to want to take. Go to your properties and go to launch options, and then set the following command. I'll have it on screen and listed down below in the description. This just makes it so the installer can actually find your microSD card and use it during this process. Now with that done, go ahead and run the executable from Steam. It should launch if you're using Proton 7. Here, basically just follow those steps, and for actually finding the files here, go through the folders here and figure out which one's actually your micro SD card or your internal drive. Search for your extracted folder and hit OK once you've located it and selected it, and you should be good to go. The installation process is very straightforward. It might take a little bit of time, but it's not too long. Once you select the folder and hit OK, most of the installation is basically just automated from here on out. So I'm just going to cut through it and jump to when the game's actually finished setting up, because immediately upon finishing the setup and hitting the finish button, it will launch the game itself and you'll be right in Silent Hill 2. Now that we have this version running, go back to your Steam library and change the setup.exe and where it points to, and have it instead point to where the executable for your actual game is in the extracted directory. After that, I would recommend changing the name of the game to Silent Hill Director's Edition. This will help with some controller setup that I'll show you later on in the video. But for now, we're going to go ahead and jump over to the Lutris version and show you how to install that one. There are some minor differences I noticed between the 2 versions, but we'll cover that later on here. So let's go right to the other installation. Now we're on to the second method. This one's going to assume that you have the game extracted into ISO files, and also is going to use Lutris to help install the game. For me, I have the game on 3 different ISO files, which represent the CDs that were used to install the director's cut of the game when it originally came out. If you're not familiar with Lutris, it's a game preservation platform that makes it easy to run a lot of games by making the process of installing them and setting them up easier. In this case, for Silent Hill 2 Enhanced Edition, it makes the process pretty straightforward. Now to download Lutris, go to the download section and follow the commands here. Now for the SteamOS one, this one didn't quite work for me where it would pop up in the Discovery Store, but if you do run this command and then run one more Flatpak command that I'll show in a little bit here, it will install it just through Flatpak, and that'll work fine on the Steam Deck. So I recommend just using that method if following the SteamOS method here doesn't pop up in the Discovery Store for you. Now regarding the steps that I took here in the video, I just copied the command from the SteamOS version to download the essentials that I need, pasted them into the Steam Deck console and ran it. Then when prompted, I entered in 633, I believe, and that's just basically grabbing the latest versions, I think, of the software. But here, when I search for Lutris, it's not popping up. The one that's listed here isn't actually the real one that we're looking for, so we're just going to go ahead and use the Flatpak method to install it, and then we should be good to go from there. Now with Lutris installed, go ahead and search it, and then open it. It might do a little bit of updating, and then once it actually opens up, I have a Lutris account where I added Silent Hill to it Otherwise, if you don't have an account, maybe make one and add it on your desktop and then sign in through here. Otherwise, you can just search for the game and then add it to your library and then install it through there. Now, before we continue on through the Lutris installation process, we have a bunch of ISO files here that we need to modify. What I did here is I just went ahead and opened these with the ARC File Explorer and extracted them into these different folders. That way the installer can read them. Otherwise, you would have to go through a process of actually mounting these ISOs, which is a lot bigger of a hassle than just making them into folders here, which is very straightforward to do. With all these ISOs extracted out to folders, we can go back to Lutris and run the installation script. Here, pick sh2ee setup, and then basically here, I just use the default options. When I created a Steam shortcut here in the first place, it didn't work, but when I closed Steam and added it later, it worked fine. So maybe don't have that enabled right now and then do it later. Now just run through the process. At one point, it will prompt you for where the CDs are, and when it does, make sure to locate the folders that we extracted for each of the discs that it's looking for. This installation process is a bit longer, and there's going to be a lot of pop-ups that come your way, but basically you can just skip through them and hit OK. Most of the default options here are fine, and in my experience, I didn't have any problems by basically just going with the defaults. At a point during this installation process, it'll open up a Wine desktop window, and the process here is basically the same as it was for when we were setting the game up with the other version. Here it's more straightforward because we did a lot of the setup just through Lutris already, so basically just click forward through the dialog options, leave it where the default install location is, and just let it run. When this installation process is done, it will run the game once again, but it's going to be in this Wine desktop window. You can close this down and then go back to Lutris, close Steam down, add the shortcut to Steam for the game, and then you can go back to game mode and actually launch Silent Hill 2 from there. Now, regardless of what version you followed, you should have Silent Hill 2 running and added to your game mode, so you can just run it from there. The game does have support for 800p, so it should fill your screen on the Steam Deck on the go. Now here I have the stats pulled up on the desktop mode. I'm playing the game at 720p just so it fills my monitor that I'm playing on here on my external display. Well, you can see from the stats that this game hits 30 FPS no problem. You can mess with the DLL file to actually get this game to run at 60 FPS, but there are some issues there. So for me, I just stuck to 30 FPS, which is the default for both versions that we use today. You can see from our GPU and CPU usage, this game is extremely easy to run, giving us around 7 hours of battery life on the go. That is about the best I've ever seen for a game on the Steam Deck as far as battery life goes. So that's pretty impressive. You could really play this game for a long time on the go. And obviously, this is an old game with a fan enhancement here. It's still not very hard to run, but it looks far superior to the original Director's Cut on PC. Now, I'm not going to have a direct comparison to the Director's Cut version that was originally released for this game, but if you go to the website, which will be in the description down below, you can look at the gallery there for the comparison between the Director's Cut and this Enhanced Edition release, and it looks far superior here. The original version doesn't even have widescreen support, and a lot of the post-processing effects look like they just got cut out of the game, so this is definitely the best way to play it here. Now, I've actually never played this game, so I definitely intend to do a playthrough on the Steam Deck. I know a lot of people have nostalgia for this game and this series. My friend Chris actually helped me quite a bit with this video. He really likes Silent Hill and the whole franchise, so he actually did the investigation for how to get this game set up on the Steam Deck in the first place, and he actually did a controller setup for this game, so I'll get to that in a tiny little bit here in the video, but I recommend you go to the link down below on your Steam Deck, open up the link, and that will actually give you a controller setup that you can use for this game right away. You just need to make sure that your game is named Silent Hill 2 Director's Cut on your Steam Deck, so it'll actually load the controls just fine. Now, regarding performance between the two different versions here, they seemed identical to me. They both play extremely well on the Steam Deck and will give you really good battery life. Now, minor differences I noticed are on the Lutris version, when using the cursor on the screen, it appeared as a machete, and on the regular version here with the fully extracted file installation, the cursor just appeared as a cursor, not as a machete. Another difference I noticed was that on the Lutris version, it wasn't using tank controls right off the bat, while on the fully extracted one, it was using tank controls. So maybe with the Lutris script, it actually does a little bit more setup with the options to enable some things that aren't set up by default on the fully extracted one. That being said, I know quite a few people prefer tank controls for this game, but it's going to be fully up to you, and you can actually change that setting in the in-game options, and I think the tank controls are listed as 2D movement, and the regular movement where it's not tank controls is listed as 3D movement. I want to shout out my good friend Chris again. If you go to this URL on your Steam Deck and Firefox and open it, it'll give you this controller setup which Chris tried to make as similar to the original game controls as he remembered them being. So if you hit apply configuration here, it'll go right to your Steam settings and apply the configuration as long as your game is named Silent Hill 2 Director's Cut, as you can see here. Upon looking back on it, one thing he did realize is that he didn't have health and reload set to the sticks, which I guess was how the controls were originally, but this is a good preset to go with if you guys want to customize the controls a little bit more. He did a lot of the legwork here, making the controls good off the get-go. Thanks for watching the video, guys. I really enjoy making these guys for the Steam Deck, even if I haven't really played these games before. Gives me a way to go back and play them on my own, and these guides are actually helpful for me for when I want to go back and play a game like Silent Hill 2. I can just reference my own video. I really want to thank everybody that's been watching the videos and subscribing to the channel. We just crossed 1,000 subscribers recently, and I want to keep charging forward and see where we can go with this channel. A lot of the videos here are about the Steam Deck, but that's not necessarily all I'm going to cover. I like games in general, and I actually did like a Digimon Survive overview because I was really looking forward to that game, and I wanted to give it a little bit more coverage since it's a pretty niche game. So I'll be doing more videos like that going forward, and I actually hope to do a couple video essays in the future, but that requires a lot more writing than something like this, so that's a bigger project, but I'll get to it eventually. Other than that, thanks for watching this video, and have a good one, everybody. Later.